The Game Awards are biased against Xbox. They always have been, always will be. This is the reality of the gaming press. The gaming media is completely controlled by Sony. It was the gaming media that downplayed the virtues of the Sega Genesis and the Nintendo consoles of yesteryear to try and convince the mass market not to buy them, right? Driving Sega into bankruptcy. These tactics never worked on Xbox. They never will work on Xbox, which is why Sony, in a lot of ways, considers Xbox like the greatest threat to their console monopoly. So that is where the rivalry between the two comes from. That Sony has to compete on their own actual merits against Xbox. They may have the absolute control over the gaming media, but to a lot of people that doesn't matter. A lot of people don't read gaming media. They don't care. And I would argue you shouldn't, considering how corrupt it is, but Xbox fans are and have been dealing with the corruption of the gaming press for a long time. I grew up being told that like Dead or Alive was like misogynistic or that Devil May Cry was far superior than Ninja Gaiden Black. It's not. Like I was told that like, ooh, these Xbox games aren't as good as the PlayStation ones when they are, or they're about the same or better. Honestly, like it's so odd, like how I kind of view Xbox and PlayStation as being basically the same, but the way the media has always tried to spin it is that like PlayStation is the superior option. And every year we go through this same thing where a bunch of PlayStation games and a bunch of like third parties that have very strong associations with PlayStation get nominated for awards that they really don't deserve, right? This year we're seeing Spider-Man being put up there, Baldur's Gate 3 being put up there, Armored Core 6 has been nominated for Best Action Game, Final Fantasy 16 has been nominated for Best RPG when I would argue it's not even an RPG. Like we're seeing all these companies, all these games that have like very strong ties to the PlayStation getting like put forward above other games. Like even if they don't win the category, the issue is that they are getting nominated, and we are increasingly seeing games that go against the agenda, right? Games like Hogwarts Legacy that are, don't go along with game journalists' opinions, or, Xbox exclusives like Starfield, like straight up being snubbed at the Game Awards. And I do think I've seen a lot of Xbox fans have been coming out and addressing this. They have been talking about it. And I am 100% on your side because I know that it's not just in your imagination. It's not just some conspiracy. Well, it's not some conspiracy theory. It's something that's actually happening. The gaming media does absolutely favor PlayStation exclusives over Xbox and Nintendo. If it's not an established Nintendo property like Mario and Zelda, it will never get nominated for Game of the Year. Right? We've seen this like time and time again. Like I've seen people for years now try to tell me that like, oh, but Breath of the Wild won in 2017. That proves that they're not biased against Nintendo. Yeah, but what about all the games they ignored that year? What about stuff like ARMS? What about Octopath Traveler the following year? What about like Splatoon 2 and 3, right? Like what about No More Heroes 3, Bayonetta 3? Like all this stuff that really should have gotten a lot more credit than it deserved, like stuff that excelled in specific genres and in specific categories, stuff that deserved to be acknowledged gets completely ignored by the Game Awards because these games aren't on board with the agenda. They're not on board with like what the Game Awards wants. If they're not on board with what the media is, how the media is trying to present gaming to the public, right? So stuff like Alan Wake 2, Spider-Man 2 are going to be put forward, nominated for a whole bunch of categories that they don't deserve to be in because those are the games that game journalists want to succeed, right? Those are the games that game journalists want to put forward, want to do well, and like want to be considered the important games of the year. And that's the issue here is that like a lot of stuff that nobody would care or talk about at all is being put forward at the expense of other better games. Stuff like Cereza and the Lost Demon. Stuff stuff like Hogwarts Legacy. Games that really should, in some way, shape, or form, be acknowledged by the Game Awards. And I am seeing more and more people start to acknowledge this, start to acknowledge that the nominations don't make any sense, that the Game Awards is a joke. Like that's been like a thing for the past couple of years, I think, is that like the Game Awards is a joke. We go into this every year like talking about how garbage the nominees are, how garbage the show is, how garbage the eventual winners are, and yet somehow like we keep doing this thing where a lot of people take the Game Awards as if it like means anything, right? And that really does have to stop. I've said this several times. I say this every year. I think I have been since I started doing my YouTube videos. Like the Game Awards isn't some bastion of good taste or like gaming culture. Okay, it is extremely corporate. They are pushing agendas, and they aren't necessarily representing the interest of people who actually love and play this stuff, right? The people who are behind the Game Awards simply don't play a lot of games, and as a result of that, they don't know what's actually out there. They won't actually put forward good interesting titles. They don't know anything. It is all entirely a corporate event to try and sell you on nonsense, right? And that is what I want you to take away from this going into the season. Like even if Nintendo wins like a bunch of awards this year, they actually are one of the most highly nominated titles companies in the industry. Even if they win like a bunch of awards, like I'm still gonna speak out about this because the Game Awards, their structure makes no sense. I don't like the show itself. It's not fun to watch, and like you don't really get this sense that the people behind it really care about or appreciate video games, right? Even if the game I want to win Game of the Year wins, like I will still say that, right? Like I will never not say that because nothing will ever take away what they did with The Last of Us Part 2 or Overwatch, right? Games that they tried to give Game of the Year awards to, right? These games that were supposed to be these big massive hits that just completely floundered, right? That just completely bombed. Even if the industry is still trying to convince you they're still viable and that they're still big deals, but in reality they're nothing. Like they're not relevant in any way, shape, or form, in spite of the shilling from the show, in spite of the damage control from paid shills, from game journalists, from everyone involved. Like even the Game Awards, the Game Awards could not stop The Last of Us Part 2 from getting wrecked by Animal Crossing New Horizons, right? Basically, everyone knows that Animal Crossing is the big game of that year, right? Even if like the industry itself doesn't want to acknowledge it. And if that is how things are going to keep going, are going to go going forward, is that Nintendo is going to put out good games, right? They're going to put out games that just destroy the entire competition. But like every year, the industry is going to rally behind one or two games that are better than Nintendo, which invalidates everything else they've done, right? So forget Fire Emblem Engage, forget Cereza and the Lost Demon, forget like Advance Wars, forget Tears of the Kingdom, forget Mario. Like Baldur's Gate 3 is here, so we can just ignore everything Nintendo has done this year. Like that's going to be how they spin it, right? Like even now, you're not seeing people really take notice of the fact that like Nintendo has two Game of the Year nominees, Mario Wonder and Tears of the Kingdom, which in my mind already makes them the default winner because they put out two completely different games that both can be considered the best title of the year, that were both huge hits, that were both highly successful, that people really love and appreciate. Like you're not seeing people like acknowledge Nintendo's successes at all. All you're seeing them now is just coming out and trying to say that like, oh, they're not gonna win Game of the Year, but that doesn't matter. Like none of this matters, honestly. Like I'm looking at these nominees and I'm seeing a bunch of high profile titles that I think a lot of people wanted to be put forward, stuff like Hogwarts Legacy and things like that were completely ignored. And as a result, like if the best games are getting ignored for Game of the Year, why exactly should we ever take them seriously?